Sergeant Franklin D. Miller and his small team were pinned down by over 100 North Vietnamese soldiers. 4 of the men were critically wounded, and the rest were almost incapacitated. Nightfall was upon them, and Miller had already single-handedly repelled 3 numerically superior NVA attacks, with nothing more than his trusty CAR-15 carbine and a dozen grenades. Despite his heroic efforts, he knew time was running out. The relief force had not arrived. He was bleeding from his chest and left arm, and ammunition was running low. It was now or never, so he calmly went prone, made sure he was concealed by the tall grass above the hill, and prepared to repel an incoming attack on his own. Military escalation. The American military involvement in Vietnam escalated after the decisive French defeat at the Battle of Dien Bien Phu at the hands of the Viet Minh in May of 1954. The event also marked the end of the First Indochina War, which had raged since 1945. The terms of the July 1954 peace agreement between the French and the Communists established a temporary partition of Vietnam, dividing the North and South until national elections were called in 1956. Those elections never happened, and the regions remained divided. The Communist North received military support from the Soviet Union and Communist China, while the South was supplied by the United States and other Western allies. President Dwight D. Eisenhower and his successor, President John F. Kennedy, continually provided South Vietnam with American military advisors and equipment. The Viet Cong insurgents had infiltrated the South and provoked havoc in the countryside, but the South Vietnamese military lacked the cohesion to fight the organized guerrilla. As the years went by, the combat turned bloodier and more personal as the North, led by Ho Chi Minh, sought to unite all of Vietnam under communist rule. Then, in August of 1964, North Vietnamese torpedo boats engaged U.S. Navy warships in the Gulf of Tonkin, prompting Congress and President Lyndon B. Johnson to escalate the conflict in Vietnam with the deployment of American troops. The United States was now at war. Joining the fray. Initially, the American population reacted positively to the war in Vietnam. The domino theory and the imminent threat that communism posed to liberty and democracy were real both in Europe and the United States. As many young men across the country joined the armed forces to fight in Vietnam, Franklin Douglas Miller from Elizabeth City, North Carolina, did the same. He joined the U.S. Army in Albuquerque, New Mexico in February of 1965, and like any other soldier, he went through basic and advanced infantry training. Miller took the Army Special Forces course at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to become a Green Beret, and was a private first class when he received orders to go to Vietnam. In a 1988 interview with an Army publication at Fort Bragg, he recalled, quote, "One day I was the dining room orderly, and the night before I'd been running around all night, so when I thought no one would miss me, I went up to the barracks, and I fell sound asleep. The first people to wake me up were the company commander and the first sergeant, who were inspecting the billets. The first sergeant said, 'You can take your punishment from me, or you can go see the old man.' I'd never been in trouble before, so I said I'd go see the old man. I figured he would just chew me out. He said, 'We've got your reassignment orders in Vietnam.'" Classified operations. Miller was deployed in March of 1966 with the 1st Cavalry Division as an infantryman. For 2 years, he conducted long-range reconnaissance operations in the Central Highlands of South Vietnam, before being transferred back to the Green Berets. Upon his return, Miller was promoted to Staff Sergeant and assigned to the 5th Special Forces Group in Kon Tum Province. As the Green Berets assembled to conduct patrols into Cambodia and Laos, Miller proved his worth as a special operator. He later joined the Elite Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group, or MACV-SOG. Only the best of the best were part of this group, a joint special operations command that comprises Marine Force recon personnel, CIA personnel, Navy SEALs, and Green Berets. These elite operators often worked in small teams of no more than 10 men and operated deep inside the jungles, hills, and mountains of enemy territory to gather valuable intelligence, or complete search and destroy or search and rescue operations. In his book, Reflections of a Warrior, 6 Years as a Green Beret in Vietnam, Miller remembers, quote, "Here we were, walking down the road in the middle of enemy territory. We'd been wearing bandanas around our heads, with a notable absence of flak jackets or helmets. Our tailored trousers would be unbloused, hanging straight down. We'd be heavily armed with strange weapons. We looked sort of like banditos. We'd just smile at them and wave very casually. These commandos knew no fear, wore the distinctive tiger stripe camouflage pattern, and were given unique equipment that was not available to standard units. Behind enemy lines. On January 5th, 1970, Staff Sergeant Miller led a 7-man team deep behind enemy lines as part of a long-range reconnaissance patrol to gather intelligence about the latest North Vietnamese movements around Kon Tum Province and Laos. The Special Forces team comprised American operators and Montagnard tribesmen of Vietnam's Central Highlands, and they infiltrated enemy territory aboard 2 UH-D-1 Huey helicopters and an escort of 6 Cobra choppers. Once below the dense canopy, the team had to make its way to Laos to find a friendly intelligence aircraft that had been shot down, and then gather intelligence about an NVA base nearby. Miller and his men moved through the jungle effortlessly, blending with the environment thanks to their uniforms and camouflage painting. But as the operators approached the crash site, they grew aware of the enemy's presence. Miller then separated from the squad, went prone, and spotted over 40 NVA soldiers sitting in the high grass surrounding the destroyed U.S. aircraft. He returned to his team and reported the position to the forward air controller circling above, who sent the operators to the crash zone. Hours later, while on patrol, Miller heard an explosion below the hill where his squad was advancing. He recalled, quote, "Strong shockwaves assaulted my body, and my vision blurred like a camera being jarred. My initial reaction was to hit the ground, because the first thing you learn about combat is that anything standing gets hit." One of the Montagnards had triggered a booby trap, and 5 of Miller's men had been injured. One-man army. Knowing that the explosion could alert the enemy, Sergeant Miller quickly administered first aid to the wounded and directed the team across a small stream bed at the base of a steep hill. Within a few minutes, Miller saw the leader of what he believed to be a platoon-sized group moving toward his location. He recalled, quote, "Suddenly, 25 to 30 NVA jumped up and began assaulting the ambush site where the blast had occurred. At first, they weren't aware of Hyuk, my point man, and me in their flank. We dropped empty magazines, jammed in full ones, and tried to stop the onslaught into the kill zone." While shooting at the enemy with his CAR-15 carbine, Miller directed his team to move up the hill to a more defensible position. He then separated from the patrol to meet the advancing NVA. He knew his team could not fight. They could barely move, and 2 of them were severely injured. The brave sergeant single-handedly repulsed 2 enemy attacks and forced them to withdraw in disorder. He then sprinted through the hill to rejoin the rest of the patrol and established contact with FAC. Moments later, he called for an evacuation. The only suitable extraction point in the dense jungle was a bomb crater 150 meters from the team's location. So Miller scoured the route to the crater and led the team through the hostile jungle to the extraction site. They now had to wait. Holding ground. AK-47 bursts concentrated on Miller, who was covering the team's rear. And as the rescue helicopter hovered over the crater to pick up the patrol, the enemy launched a savage attack with RPGs, causing the helicopter to retreat. Once again, Miller led his team in a brave defense, but during the firefight, he was wounded in the chest, and everything went pitch dark for a few seconds. Moments later, he was firing his carbine and lobbing grenades to drive back the enemy. The sergeant continued to fight on his own until nightfall, when he began to run out of ammunition. 4 of his men had already perished, and the other 2 were incapacitated. Moreover, the continuous strikes of mortars and explosives had rendered his left arm almost useless. Nevertheless, he managed to continue firing by placing his carbine on the ground. From his forward exposed position, Miller gallantly repelled another 2 attacks, and just as he was about to pass out, he saw the silhouette of a soldier carrying an M60 machine gun trying to catch his attention. It was a Montagnard from Hatchet Force, a relief squad. Eventually, another reconnaissance team arrived to evacuate Miller's team. The sergeant's bravery and devotion to his men earned him the Medal of Honor in 1971. Throughout his career, he was also awarded 6 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star, and 1 Air Medal. Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe to our Dark Documentaries channels to find more exciting content from modern history. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest videos. Stay tuned.